Ready?
We're recording.
We are?
I just started.
Okay.
Ah.
This is Grow with Tony and Joe.
Amen.
Let's get to it.
Bro, I like that.
Yeah.
So this is the second time we've tried recording. The first time Anthony told me that I kept cutting him off.
Now Joe's exposing me.
I-
That was off camera for a reason.
I mean, I feel like it's exposing to me
I
that
guess.
I kept cutting you off.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, what was the topic for today? Growing and growth.
Yeah, growing and growth.
I wanted to ask you, Joe, what is like, give me your definition of growth.
My definition of growth. It's interesting because you could kind of look at growth in different spheres, right? Because you could say that like mold growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it can be destructive. And so and then like plants and other crops, things like that grow. So just because something's growing doesn't mean that it's necessarily good,
Okay.
right? But obviously in our context, our hope is that we're growing
Positively.
healthier, yeah, like in a better way. So my definition of growth would be the development or expansion of, for our case, good things.
Okay.
Development and expansion of good things.
I like that definition.
Yeah, nobody's ever asked me that. It's a good question.
Yeah.
What's your definition of growth?
Of growth. I was thinking about it today. I was thinking like heading, cause I guess growth. I guess you like said it like you can do it in multiple ways, like with numbers, with whatever. But like in my mindset, I'm always thinking like personal growth, and I think it's just heading in a positive direction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that.
Is my mic good?
Yeah, I just be careful if you touch it a lot. You're gonna hear you touching it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Like this.
Yeah, it looks good. Well, I mean, you can kind of angle it because we want to face each other, right?
Yeah.
Like that. But heading in a good direction.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
So, what would you tell someone who's wants to be, who wants to grow, who's in a situation right now, who's in a position right now, and wants to go over here and grow towards this and head towards this direction?
Well, I
in
think.
a positive direction.
Sorry. See, look, I'm already.
Okay.
Jeez, I gotta relax. I get so excited. What is over here? Like, where is over here? That wants to like just get better. That wants to improve as like a human, like, or is there a specific goal that they're trying to reach?
Improve as a human.
Improve as a human.
Mm-hmm.
I would say one, you need to get a little bit of clarity around who you really want to become, because the who generally determines the what or the how, right? So the type of person. So say you want to gain influence in a certain sphere, right? What kind of person gains influence in that certain sphere?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, for example, you are serving at a church and you want to gain influence. You want to be able to lead a team someday. Okay, what kind of person is going to gain influence in that sphere? Well, probably somebody of good character, somebody who is consistent, somebody who's faithful, somebody who has humility, somebody who's grateful, somebody who's stepping up and stepping into situations to do their best. And so it's like, okay, cool. Now that I've got a clarity about where I want to land, now it's like, okay, let's reverse engineer it and be like, what kind of things do you do to build gratitude? What kind of things do you do to build humility? What kind of things do you do to build faithfulness?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm specifically saying those three things for character, just something that I've learned from Ern McManus. But those are like the three fundamental pieces of character. So it's like, all right, let's work there.
Let me get my phone.
Yeah, go for it, man. Anthony's getting a call. We're 3 minutes in. He's got people reaching out. If I could have a sponsor someday, I'm not gonna lie, it'd be Red Bull.
Red Bull
I would love to be sponsored by Red Bull.
gives you wings.
Bro, their gear is fresh. Like, it's good. It's clean, man.
Red Bull, they have a racing team.
Dude, they do. F1, right?
Yeah.
It's so sick. Anyways.
Doesn't-
But, okay, so you're asking about growth, but where are you trying to grow? Like,
me
right now?
personally?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to grow. I used to have this mindset of wanting to grow outside of myself. So grow my whatever I'm working on, my mission, job or my finances, whatever that may be. I wanted to grow externally, but I never really saw that I needed to grow internally, like my character or like my faithfulness, my
Mm.
gratitude, my humility, all that stuff. And recently, like it's been getting exposed, and I'm like, I have to grow in those areas before the other areas, the external areas, can, be fruitful.
Mm.
Because if you're not fruitful internally, then everywhere you put your hand in is gonna, the common denominator is you. You know?
Yeah. I think that's a really big deal that a lot of people like. One, what you're describing is like a high level of ownership, right? And
Yeah.
that's a massive part of character is like the fact that you're going to take responsibility for yourself. And I feel like a lot of people live in the kind of victim space where they're like, "Oh no, it's because of my parents or it's because of my job or it's like but like just I love what you said like common denominator is you cuz like if everywhere you go you find a problem, you're the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
Like if you didn't fit in 3 or 4 churches, bro, come on,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you didn't fit in the last 5 jobs, like what are we talking about, right? If in every relationship breakup it's their fault, bro, it's your fault. Like obviously it takes two, but in a large sense, it's probably that you've got some stuff that you need to work on. So I think it's dope that
Yeah.
you're kind of in that process.
I think the beginning of like growing is like knowing that you're not perfect and knowing like what you need to work on and
Mm.
being aware of that, being aware and conscious of it. Because some like I'm not gonna lie, like I would walk around like not conscious of my flaws, not conscious that I can do wrong, or not conscious that, I may not always be right.
Mm-hmm.
And once you step into that, it's like now you give yourself an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody who's like trying to grow
Um, I would say, okay, I have this visual. It's like bamboo, right? Bamboo grows tall, right?
and fast?
And fast. So say you're a bamboo and you're a stick of bamboo and you're 20 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
You had to, before you were 20 feet tall, you had to be 19 feet tall. Before you were 19 feet tall, you had to be 18 feet tall, and so on, all the way back to one. And I personally, I have trouble being 1 foot tall or 2 feet tall. I have trouble working in that area because I don't know. I just have trouble there. But you have to start somewhere. You know what I mean? So I say to someone who's trying to grow is like embrace the small things, embrace being bad at something, or embrace not knowing everything, or embrace, you know, yeah, not knowing everything.
Yeah, kind of.
Embrace being in that position of like, hey, there's right here, and then I can be right here, or
Yeah.
I'm gonna be right here, but I have to start right here. Like embrace that.
Do you feel like that's really an expression of like humility?
Yeah.
That there's this like recognition of I'm just I've got more ahead of me that I need to step into cuz it's crazy cuz I'm in a role right now or even a position in my life where I am doing something that I always wanted to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
kind of figured it's like, "Oh, when I get there, I'll feel like I know what I'm doing." And I said that 5 years ago. I said that 3 years ago. I said that 2 years ago. And now I'm there and I'm like, "Bro, like I know, yeah, I know a few things, but I don't really like I still always feel like I'm at that 1 foot level where I'm like, dang, like I don't really know. But
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's like a I don't know. I was thinking about this verse that we talked about a little while ago. It talks about, hey, be careful when you think that you're on stable ground because then you're gonna fall,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I just think that's so interesting because that's describing a certain level of insecurity. And so the Bible's saying, hey, there's a certain healthy insecurity that you should have. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
think it's insecurity as in your value. I think you should know the value you hold and that should be secure. But it's insecurity almost in the sense of like, of you just don't know everything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know everything that's going on. You don't know like how your own darkness or sin is going to betray you. You don't know necessarily everything in the situation. So be careful when you feel like you really know what's going on. You probably don't. And I think that's a really interesting kind of verse. And I feel like it really ties into that element of like, hey, when you want to grow, you just have to realize, I just don't know it all.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the person that thinks they know it all doesn't care about growing. So,
Yeah, people who don't want to grow, or people who think they know everything, or think they're at the top. It's like, honestly, you should never think you're at the top. And that's my philosophy.
Yeah.
There's always room for improvement. Always, like, this is cliche, but there's always room to grow.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
so
true.
when you're, I think when you're moving through life, you shouldn't be seeking to reach the top of the mountain. You should be seeking to always be moving. Like, it's not like cliche. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, right?
Yeah.
Like, you should always be moving. At least you shouldn't think, okay, I'm gonna finish here.
So, what do you think the difference between like I'll use the word progress as well, but growth and progress and motion or energy is? Cuz I think people a lot of times think that they're making progress cuz they feel like they're expending a lot of energy, but they're not actually growing. They're not actually moving anything forward.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking? Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
No,
So, like,
I'm
you
not gonna
could
lie.
think about like a group of gnats, right? And these gnats will fly around and they'll kind of like go all the way and like all in circles.
Mm-hmm.
But like the group of gnats, there's a lot of energy there, but it's not really going anywhere. It's all just in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could think about maybe a bird. And a bird might fly from one tree to another tree. And let's say that bird went a significant distance. It made progress,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that a lot of times in our own brains, we'll think about something, we'll plan things, we'll say we're going to do this, we'll make commitments, but then we never actually do anything. And so like there's a lot of energy expended,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no progress made. And so how do you make sure that you're not just expending energy but you're actually developing?
Um, I don't know. I say be like, it takes action. You know what I mean? Like, there's been processes in my life where I'm like, I plan it out all in my head and it never goes anywhere. And it's like I never really did anything, you know. But once you do action, and like once you start practicing and do action and applying it, then it starts to like kind of puts the rubber on the road. You know what I mean?
You've been reading a book right now called Atomic Habits, right?
Yes.
So what do you think like a principle from there that ties into this might be?
Um, I guess like repetition. It's like, as soon like there's okay, so Atomic Habits, it's a book about building good habits and breaking bad ones, right? And there's like good habits that you can have, and the more like, you probably everybody has habits that they don't even know that's going on, but it's because we've done it so many times that it's broken this threshold of like, it's not a habit anymore. It doesn't expand energy anymore. So once you step into like actually doing this thing over and over and over and over again, you start to build like this identity of like, this is just what I do. You know, it stops becoming a thing that you expend energy on. It just becomes second nature.
Hmm.
You know, so I feel like repetition
Yeah.
is a really like solid one, especially for, or personally, like repetition is a pretty solid one for me. Like, I know that as soon as I start repeating things and keep doing it and keep doing it, it becomes less of a chore. Like, I work out. I wasn't always good at working out. My dad had to kind of like pull me to work out sometimes when I first started. And then after my dad pulled me a couple times and I kept having to do this action of working out, it's kind of like, okay, let me go work out with my dad. And it just became something that I do.
Yeah.
It became second nature.
And now you just work out. Like it's who you are.
Yeah.
That's what you do. That makes sense. Yeah, I feel like that makes that's so much of it is like when you're growing, it's oftentimes the first seed is maybe the decision,
Hmm.
but then the watering is making the decision to keep doing it. It's
Yeah.
all the little decisions, right?
And like, I would tell people like, don't be afraid to mess up. If you're afraid to mess up, then you're going to be in like where the gnats are. You're just going to be a lot of like energy. Don't be
Energy, yeah.
afraid to mess up. You're never going to accomplish anything,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, that's kind of dude, full transparency, right? That's why this podcast and like doing these episodes has taken me so long. Is like I'm afraid that it's not going to become all that I want it to be, and I've spent a lot of energy in my head building it
Hmm.
instead of just executing.
And it's going to grow. Like, right now, we're not the best podcasters right now. But if we do this week after week after week after week, you don't think that our conversations are going to get a little more detailed, a little more better. Our production's gonna get better. It's like once we put the reps in, it's gonna grow. You
Yeah,
know,
it'll get better. Yeah, I like that.
it's not gonna start. You have to start like right now. We're at 1 foot, and you know what I
Maybe
mean.
maybe an inch.
Maybe an inch, but yeah.
That's crazy, dude. I got to tell you about the dream I had.
Okay.
So I had a dream about my friend who lives in Hawaii, and in that dream, basically I was him. I don't know if you've ever had a dream where you're somebody else, or like you kind of know you're representing someone else.
Mhm.
But I was him, and there was like on the news or something, like there was like this lie basically being spread about him, like that he was like, I don't know, did something crazy. And there's this moment where basically he was kind of like in an Airbnb or something,
Mhm.
and he was leaving and the next person was coming in at the same time. And like the guy, like the dad or whatever in the house, really, like, you could kind of sense that he was angry about something else or whatever. But my friend or me, I helped bring in like the bag for like the grandma,
Mhm.
and like put it in the room, like, yeah, I'm happy to help, no problem. And then the dad kind of knows who I am or who my friend is in the lie, and like grabs me and like throws me around, and is like, you need to get out, like, get out, right? And like
Mhm.
getting really really mad. And then as I'm like trying to grab my stuff to run out, I'm like running, and the the dad basically pulls out a gun, like a revolver, and like shoots 2 shots in the air. And then like it's like a movie, like you can see him lowering it to shoot at me,
Mhm.
and I'm like running, and I'm so afraid. And then like right before he pulls the trigger, I wake up. And so like I normally sleep, like, fall asleep on my stomach, and I wake up on my back every night,
Mhm.
right? And this time I woke up on my stomach, like exactly where I fell asleep. So it's super weird. Like I didn't move at all. And I just had this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like I think I need to call my friend, because he's in Hawaii. So it's like I woke up at like 4:30 in the morning, but that's 10:30 over there.
Mhm.
And so I'm just kind of thinking, I'm like praying, I'm like, God, what the heck? Like that's so weird. Like what kind of dream is this? And I never feel like I have like any meanings tied to dreams, but I felt like this time I had this sense that, like, this idea that lies might be spread about who somebody is, right? And the devil's going to try to implant lies and try to throw you around, but just to know that he's shooting blanks, and that the devil's like going to try to threaten you and make you feel like he's going to shoot you, but like
Mhm.
just to know that he's shooting blanks. And I was thinking about it, and I called my friend and told him this. He's like, what the heck, that's so crazy. Like, we have this great conversation. um but then I was thinking about it for you too, and I feel like there's been a real tension, and like I'm watching you wrestle to grow, and watching you wrestle to become. And I just kind of felt like, oh man, maybe it wasn't just for my friend, but maybe it's for you. Like, just know, anytime that you feel like there's a lie that's like gonna become a narrative, like that, the devil's shooting blanks. He's not actually shooting anything, and it sounds like a gun, and it looks like a gun, right?
Mhm.
But there's nothing there. It's a lie.
That's deep. That makes sense too, especially with like everything I'm like facing.
Yeah.
And I like, you know, we were talking about this earlier. Where like I feel like I'm getting fed lies, and I have to kind of like expose these lies. Like God's been exposing these lies with the truth recently. But when I was in the position I was not too long ago, it was like I was kind of believing these lies. I was allowing these lies, these blanks, to actually affect me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy because like the same thing has happened to me, and I feel like just learning to know, I can't remember what it was I was watching or listening to, but just this conversation um around knowing like what's true and what's fiction.
Hmm.
And that a lot of times, like, the people who are confident and the people who are insecure have the same thoughts going through their head. It's just the people that are confident know it's fiction. Oh, this isn't real, right?
Hmm.
Like, you're not enough. I mean, it's not real, right? You're never gonna amount to anything. This is never gonna work out. You're a fail, right? Like it's over for you. It's like it's not real, right? But the people who kind of um, are insecure or don't amount or overcome that, those are the ones that think that it's real bullets. They're the ones that think that it's real, and they're living with something, and like it's such a crazy distinction because like that's all perspective, right? That's all internal world, inner world, like the way that you see things, the way that you see even the conversations with yourself. And when you really start to digest that and realize like, oh no, no, not everything that comes to my mind is real, right? And that's why I love having the Bible, right? Because it's like, oh no, 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 I can see this is true, like this
Yeah,
is real,
absolutely.
versus like having, if you believe everything you think, you're like, bro, you're gonna go crazy. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So
I think I like that because the Bible does like like the Bible is light, the Bible is truth. It exposes lies, it exposes darkness. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And like it's kind of like there's darkness in your head or the enemy is trying to feed you stuff, and you have to literally combat that with the truth. Because if you don't, then you're gonna fall into those lies.
yeah,
You're gonna fall into that darkness
yeah. I mean, the Bible describes itself as the sword of the spirit.
that cuts through.
Yeah,
I forgot that verse specifically, but that cuts through like
yeah. It says the word of God is the sword of spirit, sharper than a double edged sword, separating between joint and marrow, soul and
yeah.
spirit. And so there's this like very fine, um, because like I think I remember hearing somebody say this, and I thought it was so insightful. They were saying that the devil doesn't lie to you with these crazy outlandish lies. He tells you 95% truth and changes a little bit,
Hmm.
right? Because like if for me, there's been so many times where it's like, hey, you messed up, true, right? And then it tacks on, you'll never get over this, right?
Hmm.
And so it's not, I don't know, maybe it's 50-50, whatever, right? But like that mess up was true. I did. Like you look back on the past, the mistake was made,
Hmm.
right? The difference is that it's not there is still a future, right? And so if you don't learn how to separate between the part that's true and the part that's a lie, and like the perspective on the past, because the past is reality, but the way you see it is also part of your reality. Because like the past can't necessarily change, but how you see the past in the present can change.
Hmm.
I remember I was in a conversation talking about, and the person said, man, so much of therapy is actually going back to bring meaning to meaningless things when you were a child, because as a child, or you don't have context for why things are happening, but the most resilient people have the ability to bring meaning to things that feel meaningless. And so a lot of times you have to kind of go back in your past and go through this process of like, man, this happened, right? This happened in my family. This happened when I was a child. This happened. I was taken advantage of. I was hurt. I was whatever. And while it's not okay, you can now give it meaning, or you can give it, it doesn't need to control you now. And if you can go back and do that, you can actually um, really step into a higher level of freedom, because they're like, no, 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 I'm going to take the darkness and I'm going to use it for something better. Right. And so you can actually cut between like, this is true, but how I'm going to choose to look at it, I can actually change. And I can be fed a lie that around how I'm seeing what did happen.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? I feel like that's nuts.
That is. I like how you touched on like a lot. You were using like choose a lot, and I think that's something important for people to know. Like you have the ability to choose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like choosing is a it's a beautiful gift because you can choose whether like if you mess up, you can choose whether you're gonna sit there, pout,
Yeah.
doubt, whatever it is, like lay there and die, or you can choose to be like, you know what, I did this, but I'm gonna go forward and I'm gonna do better, or and that is a choice. So when people are pouting and people are depressed or whatever, I feel like a lot of the times it's a choice. Like they choose to do that because the other choice, it's hard. That's the easier choice to make. The other choice is hard, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. No, that's real. I think a lot of times, I mean, I'm guilty of it. I've definitely chosen to sit there and be like, oh, woe is me.
To roll over and die.
Yeah, dude. I've had days where I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's not going to work out.
Yeah, and I've had days like that too. And then I weigh it out. I'm like, what is this? Where am I gonna be if I just do this for, let's say, a year or 2 years, or where am I gonna be if I choose to do better for a year or 2 years?
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, what other option do I have? When you put it like that, it's like, it's the it's not the easy. What is it? It's a simple choice, but it's not the easy choice. Like a lot of these choices that we make are simple. They're all simple. We know what to do. It's just not a lot of the times the simple choice is not always the easiest choice.
Yeah. Because it's not comfortable, right? Like living a healthy life is pretty simple. It's just not comfortable,
Yeah.
right? Because then, you know, that's nuts. So, oh, I forgot what I was going to say.
Uh-oh.
But we've been going for about 25 minutes. I say we keep these short,
We can cut it.
short and sweet. So, thanks for joining us for the Together podcast. And this is first in the series with Anthony and Joe, the Grow series within the Together podcast. I'm excited because hopefully we're going to have some other kind of series within the broader name and umbrella. So
I'm excited. I like this conversation today.
I like
I'm
it too.
excited.
That was good. Well, with that said, I told myself if I had a podcast, I was never gonna ask someone to rate and review. I don't know, but maybe this is the indirect way. But if it was helpful, help other people with it.
Share it with your friends. And
Yeah, I guess. If it was helpful.
oh
But man, we got to learn how to promote.
I would never think I would be doing something like this. Like if you were told me like, let's say 18-year-old Anthony, I would have never thought I'd be.
How old are you now?
21. So 3 years ago, if you told me, oh, you're gonna be on a podcast talking to people on camera, and you're actually gonna enjoy it, I'd be like, yeah, you're crazy.
That's wild. Hey, look at God.
Yeah, look at God, man.
That's wild.
Well,
Until
signing
next time.
off.
Yeah. Love you guys.
Peace. There we go.
That was good, dude.
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 I gotta learn how to speak.
I feel like you did a great job.